Mike Tyson is sitting in a radio studio in December 2024, 40 days after the Jake Paul fight. 40 days after 65 million people watched him lose. The hosts ask him about the fight, about those 8 rounds, about what it felt like. And Mike Tyson, the most feared fighter in boxing history, says 5 words that change everything. I don't remember the fight. Not most of it. Not the punches. Not the rounds. Not the moment when the judges declared Jake Paul the winner. Just blank spaces where memories should be. Like someone took an eraser to November 15th and scrubbed parts of it away. 40 days later, Mike is still trying to remember what 65 million people watched him live through. This isn't a boxing story. This is a story about the price of a comeback. About what we're willing to pay to prove we're still who we used to be. About the $20 million that looked like victory and felt like erasure. Arlington, Texas. The 15th of November, 2024. Friday night. AT&T Stadium, home of the Dallas Cowboys. 73,000 people packed into seats. 65 million more watching on Netflix from around the world. The biggest boxing audience in streaming history. All of them waiting for one question to be answered. Can a 58-year-old legend still be Iron Mike? Mike Tyson hasn't fought professionally in 19 years. Not since 2005. Not since he told the world he didn't have the stomach for this anymore. Not since he admitted the warrior inside him had finally gone quiet. But in 2024, someone woke that warrior up, offered him $20 million, offered him a stage, offered him one more chance to be the baddest man on the planet. The opponent, Jake Paul, 27 years old, YouTuber turned boxer, 11 wins, 1 loss. Critics call him a circus act. Fans call him the future. Jake calls himself the problem child. The narrative writes itself. Old lion versus young wolf, legend versus influencer, the past versus whatever comes next. But here's what nobody talks about before the fight. The cost. The real cost. Not money, not pride. The cost that shows up in radio interviews 40 days later when you can't remember what happened. The training starts 9 months before the fight. July was supposed to be fight night, but in May, Mike boards a plane from Miami to Los Angeles. Routine flight. Then, his ulcer flares. The kind of flare that makes you nauseous, makes you dizzy, makes flight attendants call for medical help. Mike Tyson, who took punches from Evander Holyfield and Lennox Lewis, brought down by his own stomach lining. 8 blood transfusions. 8. To stabilize him, to save him, to get him healthy enough to even consider fighting. The doctors probably told him to stop, to cancel, to take the money and walk away. But Mike doesn't walk away, never has. Spent his whole life refusing to quit, even when quitting makes sense. So the fight gets postponed. July becomes November. Mike gets 4 more months to train. 4 more months to convince his 58-year-old body that it's 25 again. 4 more months of punishment in the gym, training so intensely that 40 days later he'll say he left most of his fight in the training room. November 15th arrives. The weigh-in the day before turns into theater. Mike slaps Jake Paul. Open hand, right across the face. Why? Jake stepped on his toe during the face-off. That's the official story. But anyone who knows Mike knows the truth. The slap was a test. Will this kid back down? Will fear take him before the first bell? Jake just smiled, touched his face, said it was a good slap. Kid didn't flinch. That should have told Mike something. Should have told everyone something. But by then, the machine was already moving. 73,000 tickets sold. 65 million streams locked in. $20 million guaranteed. Too late to turn back. Too late to admit this might be a mistake. Fight night. Mike walks out to Murdergram. Classic Mike song. Classic Mike entrance. But the man in the ring isn't Classic Mike. Can't be. Classic Mike is 30 years gone. Classic Mike moved like lightning and hit like thunder. This Mike moves carefully, cautiously, like a man who knows his body is one wrong step from betrayal. Round 1. Orthodox stance. Both fighters testing distance. Mike throws punches. Jake throws back. Nothing decisive. Nothing spectacular. Just two men figuring each other out. Mike lands a few. Jake lands a few. The crowd roars. 65 million people lean forward. Maybe Mike still has it. Round 2. Something changes. Mike slows. Not dramatically. Not like a switch flipping. Just a gradual downshift. The kind you only notice if you're watching close. His legs lose snap. His punches lose frequency. Age isn't a knockout. It's erosion. It's the slow theft of the things you took for granted at 25. 8 rounds. 2 minutes each. Modified rules for the age difference. Mike throws 97 punches total. Lands 18. Jake throws 278. Lands 78. The math is brutal. For every punch Mike lands, Jake lands 4. For every 3 punches Mike throws, Jake throws 8. In the final round, Jake bows to Mike, shows respect, an acknowledgement. This isn't just a fight, it's a moment. The young paying tribute to the old. Then they embrace. The judges score it unanimous. Jake Paul wins 79-73, 80-72, 79-73. Mike Tyson's first professional loss since 2005. First fight since he told the world he was done. He came back for $20 million. He left with a unanimous decision defeat and holes in his memory where the fight should be. 40 days pass. December 2024. Mike sits down with Covino and Rich on Fox Sports. They ask about the fight, about how it felt, about what he remembers. And that's when Mike says it. I kind of blanked out a little bit. I don't remember the fight that much. The hosts probably think he's being humble, downplaying it. But Mike clarifies. No, really. Memory gone. He remembers coming back from the first round. Remembers Jake doing some kind of bow. That's the last clear moment. Everything else is fragments, pieces. The kind of scattered recollection you get after trauma. After your brain decides certain things aren't worth storing. Then Mike says something even more revealing. Something that explains why a man would put himself through this. Why he'd train 9 months. Why he'd fight at 58. Why he'd risk his health and his legacy for one more night under the lights. That fight was such a big ascent. We were so up and high. We were so excited. The fight's over. Boom. Wow, I'm kind of depressed a little bit. Depression. Not because he lost. Because it ended. 9 months of purpose. 9 months of training. 9 months of being Mike Tyson the fighter instead of Mike Tyson the former fighter. Then in 16 minutes it's over. The crowd goes home. The cameras turn off. The purpose disappears. And Mike is left with what? With $20 million he can't remember earning. With a body that hurts. With a mind that can't recall what 65 million people watched him do. January 2025. Mike attends the Pegasus World Cup. Reporters ask how he's feeling. He says he feels pretty good. Then he adds the qualifier. The admission, I don't know if I'm 100% recovered, but I feel good. 47 days after the fight, still not recovered. Not physically, not mentally, not in any way that matters. His wife Lakiha tells him she doesn't want him to fight again, not because she's worried about his pride, because she's worried about his life. So here's the math. The real math. Not the punch stats. Not the scorecard. The human math. $20 million earned. Memories lost. 8 blood transfusions in May. Depression in December. Not fully recovered by January. A wife begging him to stop. 65 million witnesses to the moment a legend proved he's mortal. Was it worth it? Mike would probably say yes. Would probably say the high was worth the crash. The purpose was worth the pain. The chance to be Iron Mike one more time was worth the cost of remembering that Iron Mike doesn't exist anymore. Can't exist anymore. Shouldn't exist anymore. But here's what Mike probably won't admit. At least not yet. Not until more time passes and more memories fade and he's forced to confront what he traded. He didn't just lose to Jake Paul. He lost pieces of November 15th. Lost the ability to remember what 65 million people remember about him. Lost time with his own experience. And maybe that's the cruelest part. You can buy a lot of things with $20 million, but you can't buy back memory. Can't buy back the moments your brain decided to delete for self-preservation. Mike says he might fight Floyd Mayweather in March 2026. Another exhibition, another payday, another chance to prove something to someone, maybe to himself, maybe to the ghost of the fighter he used to be. Maybe to the people who need Iron Mike to exist because their childhoods need him to exist. But every time Mike gets in the ring now, the cost goes up, the price gets steeper. More blood transfusions, more memories lost, more mornings waking up not quite sure what happened, more depression when the high fades and reality returns. Mike Tyson spent his entire life as the baddest man on the planet, the youngest heavyweight champion in history, the fighter who made grown men afraid before the first bell. But at 58, the baddest man on the planet can't remember 8 rounds, can't tell you what happened between the first round and the final bow, can't recall the thing 65 million people tuned in to watch. $20 million. Looks good on paper, looks like victory, looks like one more successful comeback for a legend who refuses to stay retired. But 40 days later, in a radio studio, when the cameras aren't Netflix level and the audience is just 3 people having a conversation, Mike admits the truth. I blanked out. I don't remember. And maybe that's the real cost, not the loss, not the unanimous decision, not Jake Paul's hand being raised. The cost is standing in front of the world and forgetting you were there. So here's the question. Not for Mike Tyson. For you. For anyone watching. For anyone who's ever convinced themselves that one more time won't hurt. One more comeback. One more chance to be who you used to be. What's it worth? The money? The moment? The chance to prove you've still got it? And when the lights go down and the crowd goes home and you're left alone with what you can't remember, was it worth the cost? Mike Tyson got $20 million, lost his memory, felt depressed when it ended, still isn't fully recovered, and he's already talking about fighting again. Some questions don't have good answers. Some costs can't be calculated until after you've paid them, and some comebacks cost more than anyone should pay, but we pay anyway. Because the alternative, admitting we're not who we used to be, sometimes feels more expensive than anything money can buy. Mike Tyson blanked out during the Jake Paul fight, but 65 million people will remember it forever. And maybe that's the trade. Your memory for their memory, your experience for their entertainment, your health for their moment. $20 million, 8 rounds, 97 punches thrown, 18 landed, memory gone, depression arrived, recovery incomplete. That's the real cost. Not the scorecard, the aftermath, the 40 days later, the admission that the thing everyone else watched, you can't quite recall, that the moment that defined your year is missing from your mind in pieces. That coming back costs more than losing ever did. Mike Tyson will probably fight again, will probably take another payday, will probably convince himself one more time that this time will be different. This time he'll remember. This time, it won't cost so much. But the cost always comes, always arrives, always takes more than you planned to give. And 40 days later, you're sitting in a radio studio trying to explain to strangers why the thing they watched you do is the thing you can't remember doing. That's the price of a comeback. Not the money you make, the memories you lose, the person you were, the cost of proving you're still someone you stopped being 30 years ago. Mike Tyson paid $20 million to forget the 15th of November 2024. Some people call that a payday. Some call it a tragedy. Mike calls it worth it. But 40 days later, depression settles in, and memories stay gone. And the question remains, what did you really win?